Good morning. It's okay. Good morning. Good morning. Good. How are you? Good morning.
Well, welcome back, Joe.
Thank you.
Tell us, if you would, how it went in Tallahassee.
I feel like it went as well as can be expected. It reminded me a lot of when I was campaigning for this position, which was a little bit difficult for me to get into a mind frame for that. So I think I'll be a little bit more prepared this time around if I make it out of the committee to go full force, but I was really a little bit surprised, right, within hours of receiving the phone call from the sword that people were already maneuvering, and
Right.
I was like, wow.
That's where the politics really starts.
I'm still calling people and saying, I'm so excited, and people are already rallying support, so that part of it was a little bit surprising to me.
What do you think you do differently this time around?
Try to cast my net wider for people that I'm trying to get to the governor's office, meeting with more people personally rather than just relying on somebody else, talking to someone for me, going out myself and actually having those contacts personally. And that's what I would do differently. So.
Talk to me about the interview process. What would you do differently with respect to the interview process?
In Tallahassee?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I felt like I had a fairly good interview. There was really only one thing that I wasn't really up to speed on, which was the Hearst appeal. They asked me about the Hearst appeal. And it's kind of funny because
It happened like that day or right there after the opinion came out, correct?
no, the opinion just came out recently. I was there in December, but nevertheless, when I started researching it, I was like thinking to myself, I'm a county judge, I don't do death penalty cases. They're asking me about the death penalty, which I knew they would ask about the death penalty, but the facts and circumstances of that appeal in that case, I just don't keep up on that stuff because I have to keep current on what's happening with county court litigation. So the death penalty isn't really something that I had paid a lot of attention to for the last 3 years. But of course I've read the opinion now and all the different interpretations of how the opinion is going to affect felony circuit court. So, but other than that, I felt like the interview in Tallahassee went well. I was able to express to them all the reasons why I felt that I was a good candidate. I was able to talk to them about the pretrial release program, which I spoke to you all about last time, which I'm really proud of. I was able to speak to them about my teaching, which is something else that I'm really proud of. So I feel like I was able to get across the things that I thought set me apart from the other candidates, especially, with Judge Henderson and I being the two county judges that went up there, even trying to distinguish myself a little bit from him as well. So I felt like it went well. It's all the behind the scenes part that I need to do a little bit better on this time around, I think.
Melissa, why do you want to go to circuit court from county court?
Well, and so I really want to do family law. I miss doing family law. When I was in private practice, I did mostly criminal defense and family law. So I miss working with children. And I really have enjoyed the little bit of delinquency that I've been doing since Judge Walsh handed it over to me essentially in December of 2014. So for about 15, 16 months now, I've been doing delinquency, and I absolutely love it. And it really reminded me of working with children and doing the circuit work and missing that part of family law, because really I'm doing civil, I'm doing criminal. The only thing I'm really not doing right now is family law, and that was a huge part of my practice, and there's not many people who enjoy doing family law. I really enjoy the mixed questions of fact and law that you see in family law, and I really feel like it's a unique area of law because it's personal to those individuals, and oftentimes they think that what they're doing is in their children's best interests, even though objectively you can recognize that it's not. So it's having that holistic approach of understanding where that person's coming from. I think having practiced family law, representing both sides, and I represented husbands and wives, paternity cases, both sides. I did Department of Revenue child support work, so I understand all of the dynamics of that system. So unified family court is what I would like to do, and this is a unified family spot here in Flagler, and I want to stay here, so,
And this is your home turf, right?
yes.
And you've already won an election. in this
Yes.
province.
Now, Judge Weston, go ahead and expand upon kind of what sets you apart from, we have another county court judge that we're going to hear this morning. What have you done since you've been on the bench to kind of distinguish yourself from him? There's a lot of people that just get there. and
Right.
They're just there.
Right.
So tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you've been doing, because I was really impressed.
So I feel like initially, one of the things that sets me apart from Judge Henderson is I was elected, he was appointed. Of course, he was appointed by this governor, which gives him, I feel, a little bit of advantage if we both make it out of the committee. But I think the teaching has been a huge thing that I've really jumped full force into and made a commitment to do. And it's being a solo county judge, I do everything. So I do first appearances every day. I'm just a type A personality. It was something that I feel passionately about and enjoy doing, and I make the time to do it. So I don't believe that Steve has ever done anything like that as far as getting really involved in a county conference. There are several county judges who are upset with me that I want to be a circuit judge because they want to see me get more involved in the county conference and move up in the ranks. And I am, since I saw you all the last time, I found out that I'm now teaching in March to Phase 2, which is Judicial College Phase 2, the substantive areas of law of landlord, tenant, and case management. I'm teaching with Judge Silverman in Brevard County. So when I saw you the last time, I had told you I was excited about teaching in November, and then in July to our conference. Now I've got another teaching engagement coming up in March. So I'm really excited about doing all of that, and it's in order to teach other judges, you have to know that area of law inside and out, because you can expect they are going to challenge you, ask you really in-depth questions, because it is a very Socratic back and forth conversation, hand you the gavel, we're going back and forth as the attorneys, you make the ruling. I mean, that's how we handle it. So it's pretty intense, and I do think that, so I think that sets me apart from Judge Henderson. Obviously, the pretrial release program, which I advocated for and did all the research and kept all the necessary information to make that happen. I think that sets me apart as well. I'm also in the preliminary stages of hoping to get Veterans Court here in Flagler County as well. So we've had a few meetings about it, and we're working on numbers, trying to see if we have the numbers to support it, and then figuring out who's going to be doing the supervision side of it. So we've hit a couple of stumbling blocks, but we've been working on that for maybe 2 or 3 months now behind the scenes. So it's definitely not happening yet, but that's the kind of judge that I am, is I see a need in our community and I want to fill that need, and will do whatever I can in my power to make sure that that happens, if we can make it happen.
Our news has been pretty much saturated with the passing of Justice Scalia. And so my question is to you, what Supreme Court justice do you admire, and if so, why?
Well, I mean, it may sound kind of funny, but I actually did admire Justice Scalia. When I was in law school, he was one of those that I was like, I would really like to sit down and have a conversation with this man. I mean, the way he would think about the law was so different than how a lot of people look at it. So really, he was one of those types of people where, you know, ideology aside, the way he looked at the law, I mean, if you think about the whole confrontation clause and how that decision changed the way that we practiced law, changed the way that evidence was admitted. I mean, he is really, would have been somebody that I would have liked to sit down and have a conversation with, so.
I know a lot of people get asked this, and probably, you know, those inside somebody asks too, how do you do all the things you do? I just cannot figure out how your day and your busy docket, you have time to accept and volunteer for all these other projects. And can you talk about sort of day-to-day time management and how you are able to take on so much here in Flagler County?
I just stay on top of things. You can't let things get behind. So I'm usually in the building between 7:30 and 7:40. I think I saw Mr. Stanton bringing some supplies in this morning as he was rolling in a cart this morning. So I get here fairly early. I do have to open up first appearance and read all that paperwork first thing in the morning, and do that at 8:30 before I start my day. I since we've been electronic and we don't have files anymore, it was a little bit of a transition for me because I spent a year with files and then I had to go to no files. So I have a notepad that I keep right next to my desk, and for all my civil hearings today, I have the case number and the type of motion that's being heard and the parties' names, and I review all of that in advance. So I've taken a few little notes myself, and I have my notes that are in the clerk system on the computer from any prior hearings. So, I mean, it's really just being thorough and staying on top of it. Sometimes my assistant isn't really happy with me when I say, oh, I'm going to be teaching here, I'm going to be gone these 3 days, and I'm going to be doing this and doing that, and she's like, but we have to schedule evictions, and we have to do this, and we have to do that, and I'm like, okay, we'll figure it out. So, it is a lot, but that's why I said I enjoy it. I don't want to sit around and have nothing to do. I feel sorry for some of the judges who have 2-week trial terms, and then they don't have any trials, and nothing's happening. I mean, I'm thankful when I have at least one day during my trial week with nothing, because it does allow me to catch up a little bit if I have gotten behind. But really, it's just not taking things under advisement, being thorough, keeping everything moving and on track.
Yeah, and I guess it goes on with that, you also are very involved in the community. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in Take Stock?
Right, so I'm a mentor in Take Stock in Children. I know Judge Fagenbaum got a whole write-up in the newspaper about it, and I was like, I do that too. But I guess I'm here in Flagler, so we don't get as much publicity as they do down in Volusia. So I have a senior. I'm actually going to see her today. So I've been doing that for 4 years, and I'll get a new student next year, and that's been very rewarding for me. Her dad is in the military right now, so hopefully he'll be back in time for her graduation. It might be a week or two after she graduates in the end of May, but that's been really rewarding to me, being part of Take Stock. I also do the Justice Teaching Program, which I've been doing for probably 8 or 9 years now. I go to Old Kings Elementary and teach the students twice a year about the Constitution and about statutes and rules and lawmaking and things like that. So that's 2 full days out of the year that I dedicate to doing that. So, I mean, being involved in the community is certainly very important to me, and especially as a judge or when I was a lawyer, people, and in this year, because it's an election year, it's a presidential election year, people are a little bit more involved politically and in civics, but it's amazing how much people it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. They're not involved in the process, so they aren't really thinking about the process. So for me, it's getting our children thinking about the law and that process and being engaged in it. That's very important to me, inspiring people to be involved in the community, be involved, even if you're not in the law, so to speak, knowing who the candidates are, expressing your voice in whatever way you can, and that's really important to me.
In private practice, I understand that you became board certified, and I understand how difficult that is. Can you explain to the other commissioners the level of complexity, and also why you chose to become board certified in criminal defense? I had done a lot of trials as a state attorney. Obviously, when you're in the state, you do a lot of trials, and I really enjoy being in a courtroom and doing trial work. So when I became a defense attorney, you don't try as many cases typically as a defense attorney. Even as a public defender, you don't necessarily try as many cases, but certainly as a private attorney. So I obtained my board certification, and it was extraordinarily difficult. I went, I think it was either 2 or 3 years in a row, to the board certification review class, so that I was preparing for months and months. It was almost as intense, if not more intense, than taking the bar. And I knew other people who sat for the exam the same time that I did who did not pass. So that was really eye-opening to me, of seeing other people who I felt were competent and they didn't pass the exam. So it's something that I feel very strongly about, and I was actually working on obtaining my board certification in family law. Had I not won my election in 2012, that was going to be my next goal, was to become board certified in family law, because I practiced a lot of family law at that time. So I feel like to me, it sets you apart from the other practitioners in that you've had the trial experience, you've gone through the process of
the Florida bar reviewing all of your information, judges reviewing you, other attorneys that you've practiced against reviewing you, and then having to sit for that test that really only, I want to say it's 35 to 40% pass the test. So it's a really high standard that you have to do to become board certified. So, I mean, I used to brag about it when I was a lawyer, when people are trying to decide, should I hire this person, should I hire that person? I'll say, well, I'm board certified and they're not, and here's all the things you have to do to become board certified. So obviously that's your decision to make, so I'm really proud of it. I renew again this year. So thankfully Judge Walsh has allowed me to cover, I think it's been 6 felony trials that I've covered for him, because when I first got on the bench and I got my renewal certificate, I actually called the Florida bar and I said, I'm not going to be able to renew. I'm a county judge. I am not going to get 3 felony trials within this 5-year period. I was already a year or 2 years into it. And they said, well, you can preside over felony trials and that will count. So I said, okay, I'll pay this year and we'll see. You know, in my brain, I was like, why am I going to waste this money? Because I'm not going to be able to renew. So I went to Judge Walsh and he said, oh yeah, I'll give you trials anytime you want one. If I have something extra, we'll let you cover it. So. And then, of course, the very first one that I covered for him was Mr. Rowland, who's one of my cases that I cited for you all in my application. So that's been really rewarding, and he was very generous, and so now I'm not going to have any trouble renewing this time around because I've gotten more than what I needed for my felonies.
Anyone else?
Just one question, Your Honor.
Yes.
Are you up for election this term?
No, sir. I am up in 2018.
I wanted to follow up on Mark's question about why you want to go to circuit court. It seems like after running in an election, that would be a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort to try to get that position, and now 3 years, I guess, into it, you want to go to circuit court. Is it just for the family, going back into family law?
That is a large part of it. I do think that the challenges in circuit court are more intense intellectually than necessarily handling small claims cases day in and day out. I mean, I certainly do get some complex civil cases, and obviously motions to suppress DUIs can be very involved. I just feel like I would like an additional challenge that I think circuit court would bring, and I do miss working with families. I think it should be a natural progression if you've got a county judge who's doing well and has the disposition for circuit court. I do think it's a good progression to have. We don't necessarily see it that much, but I do think it's the next step for me. It's something that I would like to do. I really do miss working with families, and I really feel strongly about unified family court. When I took the crossover training last March, when I started doing the delinquency cases, I went to phase 2 in March for 3 days to learn delinquency, dependency, and unified family court. And I wasn't really familiar with the concept of unified family court as far as the motivating factor behind it. I understood pragmatically how it worked, but once I understood you've got this child who potentially is a victim in a dependency case or is considered a dependent child, who then their parents go through a divorce or have injunction proceedings that are very litigious, and then the child ends up in delinquency court. Seeing that child and knowing their background of what they've been through and what might be best to help them get out of the system and live a happy, productive life has been really, that concept is something that I feel strongly about. I think that it can work. I think having one judge doing all of those aspects, following that child for those years, to me is the best way to make a child successful. And I can say that doing the delinquency work that I've done, because that is circuit work that I've been doing for the last 14, 15 months, it's been so rewarding to me, and I've had children in front of me that have been successful, and it's almost like it's my child. I'm so happy that they have found the strength within themselves to do the right thing. And then I have other kids who are just have an inability to control some of their anger, and they don't understand why they can't control it. And I look at them and I'm like, I want to give you the tools to make you successful moving forward. I don't want you to think that I'm sending you to a program because I'm punishing you. You need more structure. you need a better environment to learn how to be successful. And I'll tell them that. I don't want to see you in 3 years in orange. So that's the part of being a circuit judge that to me is a driving factor. Because that's, since I've been doing that and really wanting to handle a unified family division, and like I said, I don't think there's many judges or attorneys that look forward to that and say, yes, I'm excited about unified family court, but I genuinely am. And the fact that it's here in Flagler where I live, that's important to me as well. Not that I wouldn't want to do it elsewhere, I would do it anywhere, but I just feel very strongly about unified family court. I miss working with children. I've really enjoyed the circuit work that I've done. Not that I don't enjoy county court. There's things about county court that I would miss if I moved up to circuit. So, and I said that the last time, I know you weren't here, but it was a hard decision for me back in October or September to decide whether or not to put in, because there's so many aspects of my job that I love, and I've gotten so involved in the conference and teaching and everything, and I know if I become a circuit judge, it's going to be the same process all over again of talking to the right people and getting your foot in the door and trying to teach the classes that I want to teach, and I've already kind of done that at the county level. So it was a hard decision for me of whether or not to put in, but I think I would do a good job at it.
Judge, thank you.
Thank you.
You know our process. We'll let you know by the end of the day.
Okay, I
But
appreciate
thanks
it.
for coming in.
Thank you.